Welcome back everyone to Pontus Fathom Hobbies. This is our playthrough of Game of Thrones the board game, Season 2. It's our Mother of Dragons expansion version. So it's this month has been Game of Thrones month all month. So we are going to not only play a second game of Game of Thrones, we're going to try out the mechanics in a walkthrough of the Game of Thrones Mother of Dragons. And I'm going to check out this Dances with Dragons deck of cards that we can swap out for some of the characters depending on which scenario we want to play. So we'll kind of go through these and we'll make a decision on that. So this will be kind of a long setup, but let's dig into it. So first off, I've got the board here on the table. I might arrange this a little better for gameplay, but let's just get the basics going. So we've got the rule books out. We will be playing with House Targaryen, and I would like to play the expansion rules of vassals. So I think we need a minimum of 4 players to play. So I think I'll have Targaryen, Lannister. Maybe we'll do Baratheon, and maybe we'll do Tyrell, and the rest of them can be vassals. So we'll play with all the houses. Let's do a quick inventory of the setup walkthrough. So first we'll go through the setup rules from the main book, and then we will jump into the expansion rules second. And lastly, if you guys already know how to set this up and you just want to jump into turn 1, feel free to do it. If you want to skip ahead to the end of the video, I'll have a summary of the completed board, but if you kind of want to walk through with me, we can do that. So here we are. So first off, we got the game board set up. We get the Wilding deck ready. So let's find the Wilding deck here. So there's lots of decks here. We've got the Westeros phase deck, which will have the 1, the 2, the 3, and then we'll have the sort of an Essos phase Mother of Dragons version 4, which comes with the Mother of Dragons expansion. So now we have 4 phases in the Westeros phase, which makes it gives us some new mechanics. So that's kind of a cool way to expand that. As we mentioned, the Wilding deck. We'll put the Wilding deck in the Wilding spot. Get rid of this. Slowly working our way out of chaos. So let's, to minimize the chaos, let's move all of these components off the board. You can put these over here. I will put them in each of the houses. Next up, we will prepare the Westeros decks. They're prepared. I'll shuffle them later. We'll have to find the, here's the Wilding token. And let's use the top board to stage stuff so we can get ready. We also have the decks here. I will put the decks from the Dance with Dragons. So what this Dance with Dragons deck has is just different character cards with some different effects for them. And it also represents the progression of Game of Thrones somewhat. So, and the mechanism of the vassal states. So where the basic game has certain characters, like I think really most profoundly is like House Stark, right? House Stark starts out with Ned, but then Winterfell gets run by the Boltons. So they kind of represent that Bolton usurping of Winterfell. So you can play through that phase. So there's a sort of a progression. in the Game of Thrones play. Okay, we got the round marker in place. Determine the player houses if I've determined them. Gather house materials. So yeah, we've got the house materials for each of the houses. Let's just put these here for now, and then we can go through them. These newer tokens are for establishing and de-establishing fortresses, and also for resources, supplies. So you can actually place these over or place them in, something like this, right? So that'll be some new rules. Those will be interesting to play. We have some additional tokens for each of the old houses as well. And then there's this cool setup here where we, if you check this out, there's a few of these game board tokens, right? So this one is for House Aaron. So we have the Eyrie here, but we don't have the Vale of Aaron. So this just sort of changes the layup. So now the Mountains of the Moon layer area, which is very large, now it gets to have a second Vale of Aaron here, and then there's also a port here. And then to make the Stark lands a little different, there's this token for the Bight, and we put this here. So now this is a separate space from the Narrow Sea. So there's the Narrow Sea, there's the Bight, and that's a second hop, so you can move that way. So that just gives another landing area for fleets to be. I mean, this is obviously to facilitate the fact that Aaron is here. Now that the setup is a little bit cleaner, and we've got all of the troops on the board, I think I'm going to. So we've picked the main four houses are Stark, Baratheon, Lannister, and Targaryen. That means Greyjoy, Tyrell, Arryn, and Martell will be the vassal states. And because we're going to play with the Game of Thrones Dances with Dragons expansion, I've got these house scenario setups for each of these houses. So we'll go ahead and we'll swap out those houses setups for, so these are the main game setups, but I'm going to go in, for example, with Stark. They're going to be position 4 on the Iron Throne, so I can go through and set up all these Iron Throne positions. And then also they have the territory setup. So each of these will have, so if we do Stark, Lannister, and then of course we have to pull Targaryen from the main game setup. But if you check up the main game rules, Targaryen's already set up by the main game rules. So we use the Mother of Dragons setup for Targaryen, as you can see in the Targaryen card. And over here we've got dragons in the Rhone, Norvos, Bravos, Pentos, and ships out in the Bay of Pentos. Okay, so we'll go ahead and fast forward through that, and I'll catch you guys right afterwards. Place units, we can go through placing the units. So I will fast forward through all of those. So guys, if you guys have played Mother of Expansions, please leave a comment below if I get something wrong in the setup, or if you want to talk about how you play a different variant. Okay, so we've gotten the armies placed. We'll do a quick note on that, and we got some additional new game features. One of them is the influence track. As you guys can see here, the influence track is set for using all these players. It also says we can reposition or for any vassals. So for the purposes of the first few rounds of gameplay, I'm going to play as if all the characters are real characters. And then we can swap out the back four houses of Greyjoy, Martell, Arryn, and Tyrell as vassals, and we can experiment with the vassal play. We've got the cards set up here. Like I mentioned, the influence tracks are set up. We also have the Iron Bank and the Iron Bank cards set up. Finally, a note on the Mother of Dragons expansion rules, as well as the Game of Thrones A Dance with Dragons expansion rules. Just wanted to call out here that we did a bit of blending from the card prep. So we had the vassal decks for Mother of Dragons, which have their setups. So we went with a lot of these, but then we also had the Game of Thrones Dance with Dragons setup decks, which had different setups. And because House Aaron isn't in that, I think you're just supposed to play House Aaron and set the other ones up using the Dance of Dragons. But what I did is I kind of went with a blended approach. I looked at mainly the Dance with Dragons setups for the main houses. So I did that for Stark, Lannister, Baratheon, and then I just went off the card for Targaryen. And then for the vassals, I used the vassal setup for Aaron, Greyjoy, and Tyrell and Martell, but I blended it with the vassals of Tyrell, Martell, and Greyjoy. So what does that mean? I tried to keep things not as intrusive, like this Tyrell one where they're across the whole board. I did not do that. I kept them in their regions. So everyone has been contained in their regions, but the forces are pretty much equal. So Martell, Tyrell, Dragonstone, they do expand up into the Swimming Sea, which was by the Baratheon setup. So that's kind of a little bit different. And then Greyjoy set up with an addition of Seaguard, and then House Stark also ended the Bite. We moved the House Stark boat into the Bite just to allow the Aaron in the Narrow Sea, and Targaryen pretty much is the same setup as the card. So that's final notes on the setup. I also set up the Dragon rounds for the Dragon Strength. And set up the victory tracks. I recalculated based on the actual board positioning, again for balance. So we have our supply track set up and we have our victory track set up. So hopefully that's good enough. And great, thank you guys. And let's jump over to turn one here or here, and we'll talk to you in the first round of the game. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.